And Kelsey, it needs just another minute. I know it's telling you, but
all good.
Let's see. There we go. We're ready for you now.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. All right. So welcome to the December 21st LGBTQIA plus Intersectional Rights Task Force. I'm excited to have our guests here today. So we're going to start with our welcome/introductions. We do this popcorn style. So someone will go and then they will popcorn to someone else. I can start. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission and the chair of the subcommittee. And I'm a member of Ward 4, and I'm going to popcorn to John.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Mathis. I use he, him pronouns. I am a Title IX coordinator at Chemeketa Community College and also work with Vivi doing the diversity, work in the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Office at Chemeketa, and also am offering the Cultural Competency Certificate to a number of people, both internally and externally within the state. So thank you for having us. And well, since I already said Vivi's name, I'll popcorn over to Vivi.
Hi, my name is Vivi Kalefi Pritchard. My pronouns are Ella, she, and her. And I'm the Chief Diversity Officer for Chemeketa Community College. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having us. Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ostrand-Ponch. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission as well as this task force. I live in South Salem. My pronouns are she, her. And Gretchen, that leaves you.
Very good. Good evening. Name is Gretchen Bennett, she, her pronouns, and I'm the staff liaison from the city's mayor and city manager's office to the commission.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We will now move into public comment. Gretchen, did you receive any / are there any?
I did not.
Okay. Are there any public comments? Seeing none. We'll move into approval of the minutes. And we do have quorum, 50% plus 1, great. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting? Kathy?
Sorry about that. Okay, I will move to approve the October 26th minutes.
All right. I don't think I can technically second it, but I'm going to second it. Is there any dissent? Great. Seeing none. Minutes have been approved. So now it's our time for our guests. Discussion of the Safe Spaces project and then how that mission aligns with the work that you all are doing at Chemeketa. So I'll throw it over to you all.
Thank you. And I wanted to just quickly offer a little bit of intro as we invite our guests from Chemeketa to share. It's exactly what you said, kind of exploring the potential for mission alignment. I think you've all had a chance to take a look at the work that this group has done. And I was mentioning to Vivi some of our former committee members and their contributions as well. One of the updates I wanted to share, Kathy, with you and Kelsey, since we last talked, is we discovered financially, it is just as the city became concerned with capacity to administer as it's constructed. I mean, I think I'm learning that would be the same as for Chemeketa. It's an undertaking that would have a fiscal impact. And so recognizing that, and in the budget environment that we're in right now, I don't have a resource to be able to offer to the table. And so I wanted to give you both that update. That being said, I think it's really interesting to explore the work and the project and what Chemeketa is doing and what we had in mind. So that's the hope of this evening. So maybe with that, Vivi, if you and John, if you want to share kind of what you're doing there, and then we can discover those intersections.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'll tell you a little bit about the work we've been doing at Chemeketa. John will give you more context to exactly what the Cultural Competency Certificate is. And then we'll talk a little bit more, and we'll have some questions for you, but talk a little bit more about what we see from your work, which is obviously amazing. I was blown away by the work that you did and how we can potentially collaborate, or, can the certificate be something that, if customized, meet the needs that you all identified. So just for context, I don't know if you all are familiar with Chemeketa at all, but we're a community college, and we serve the Tri-County District here in Oregon, so Marion, Polk, and Yamaha County. And we offer transfer level education, so preparing students to move on to a university, career technical education. So think, CTE, like nursing, EMT, and a lot of different programs in the CTE area. And we also provide another arm of the college's workforce development. So workforce development includes a lot of skill-based training. And so with that, we have a tremendous potential to meet the needs of the workforce, right? We meaning higher education institutions, in 2017, there was a bill that was passed that requires all higher education institutions to provide cultural competency related training for staff and faculty. And so the approach that we took at Chemeketa was to create what we call the Cultural Competency Certificate. And we've had a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion office at Chemeketa for many, many years. I've been at Chemeketa for 15 years, even before I was there. And a lot of organizations, they are starting in this work. We've been doing that for a long time. So the Cultural Competency Certificate kind of builds on the work that has already been happening at Chemeketa for many, many years, kind of like culminates all of this, incredible knowledge that a lot of people put into the work. And then we started what we call the Cultural Competency Certificate. It was, and it still is, an internal process. We offer a lot of different workshops. Staff and faculty participate in the workshops. And after they receive enough of what we call credits, there is a number of credits they need to participate in, they receive what we call a professional development certificate. So it was very well received internally, still is. And when talking to other people about it, other organizations were really interested in developing something similar. A lot of private and nonprofit organizations were like, why don't you do that for us? We need this. We don't have the capacity. You all know what you're doing. And so it was maybe about a year ago when we sought approval for what is called a non-credit training certificate, and received approval from the state to offer this credential. So it is a certificate that is approved through the state. It's transcripted. So someone who goes through the certificate receives an actual certificate credential from the college, from Chemeketa. And so we now have this approval. We've worked with a few organizations to provide the certificate in the format of oftentimes customized training. So we work, if it's an organization specifically, we customize the training to meet the needs of the organization, as long as it meets the outline that we have for the certificate. And so it's an 18-hour certificate that we break into 6 different parts, and John is going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. And it is something that we've been doing now for a while, and could potentially meet the needs that you have, potentially in a customized way. So John, maybe I'll pass it off to you. You can talk a little bit more about the certificate details, then we can kind of open up for questions and also just get some more context from you.
Thank you. And I think I may share my screen for part of this because I'd like you to be able to see our visual of our cultural competency certificate and kind of what we do. And I'm going to talk through the visual. So hopefully that's okay. And then some of your other participants who might watch this later could also see this. Are you seeing this cultural competency non-credit certificate?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what we do, and again, Vivi described it well in saying that we customize this oftentimes per the organization. We also sometimes offer, and we're working on offering different groups that would come from very different perspectives into one kind of cohort together to walk through something that is a little bit more structured, not as customized, but we're starting a lot of different ways of getting this out there. So our cultural competency certificate is a 6-week program, and we have these, and you can see these 6 focus areas and that we really focus on. One of the ways in which, and some of these, we have these listed in what you would think is a sequential order, but oftentimes we'll move between these differently based on who we're meeting with and talking to. We always open with practicing self-discovery, and we always close with creating a plan of action. But some of these others will move around a little bit based on who we're meeting with and what their priorities are. But I want to just tell you briefly what it would look like. So right now we're looking at practicing self-discovery as just opening up this opportunity for people to talk about their own cultural identity, their own experiences, and to be able to challenge a little bit of to reflect and a little bit think about where you have come from, where you are going to continue to grow, and what areas that you want to pursue, specifically in potentially a lack of knowledge in your own competency within your cultural experience. One thing that we look at with practicing self-discovery is how can we be more aware of the areas in which we need to grow and be challenged. So we want to invite people to share their own experiences. And we want people to be able to internalize this in the very beginning, the first week, understanding who am I, what do I bring to this work, and who are other people with me in the room and what do they bring? So that as we can kind of collectively look at that, how do we then move forward into our future exercises and weeks? What we've done then is kind of building on that, looking at cultural humility, and through a number of different ways in which we've looked at this, and even seen the research, academic research, and if actually just like pragmatic, like practical research that happens within the work that we've seen going around the country and within our region. Humility is a key factor to be able to dive deeper into this work. So if we don't know what it means to be culturally humble, if we don't know what it means to bring our full selves to the table, but also realize our full deficits, like the areas in which we lack, and be really curious about other people's lived experiences, if we can't do that, we're going to really get to where a lot of our country is at right now, which is this polarized spot where we're in this like, they're right, they're wrong, and it's this animosity. So we really want to help educate and facilitate conversations in which we can start to understand how we need to focus on humility, focus on like, what do I need to learn? How can I be better? How can I continue to grow? What good questions can I ask? How can I go a little bit deeper? And learning a little bit what cultural humility is. We're also then, as building on that, we center a lot of the work that we do on race. It's not to say that we don't integrate other intersectional identities into what we do, but we really want to actually have a focused area on anti-racism, because as we think about, especially within our community and within our state, in the state of Oregon, our state was founded and built on pretty racist practices. And so giving privilege to those who were white, and even creating this language of who is white and who is not, and the colorism that exists, and anti-Blackness, and say like the closer you are to being Black, the less rights and privileges you have. We really want to focus on that and say, this is our history. This is who we have. This is how a lot of what we have done has been built as an economy, as systems. It's not to say that we have to, like, if you're white, you have to be extremely apologetic for being white or having light skin, but it does mean that we have to realize, like, there's some messed up stuff with this, and we need to own it, and we need to understand how is this potentially going to get in the way of future progress. So we do that, and then we dive deeper into inclusion and equity. So what does it mean then, knowing all of that, to be an inclusive space, to be a place where people can find a place where everyone can belong? How can we create inclusive spaces within our context, within our reality, within our workplaces, where people can feel like they really truly belong? And if we're inclusive, what does that mean? Does that mean that we are inclusive to certain groups but not to others? It shouldn't. It should mean that we really are actively welcoming people from very different perspectives and backgrounds together in a community, so we can become even stronger as a group. Because as we start to learn and learn from other differing perspectives, we can, we're going to thrive as a state, as an economy, as a community. Understanding different perspectives is helpful. So we also, within that, because we're talking about anti-racism, we will then dive into the intersectionality a little bit of what are the different identities that have been historically marginalized or oppressed, and what voices do we need to be very conscious of listening to, because those voices have often been excluded. So we are not trying to say that certain voices should never speak. But we are saying that other voices who have been marginalized, often intentionally, need to be given equal opportunity to share their reality and their truth, because this is something that's going to help us grow. Out of that then really builds this idea of equitable practices. So how can a lot of our systems are created based on a foundation of inequity, based on a foundation of oppression, of racial discrimination. We don't like to call it that, but that's really what it is. That's the reality. So how do we then look at our practices, our policies, our procedures, and then think, okay, so where does inequity exist? We want to be inclusive. We recognize there's racism, there's sexism, there's homophobia, there's all sorts of stuff that is messing up us being a collective community that can thrive. And we want to develop these inclusive spaces. How can we develop equitable practices and policies and procedures and ways that are embedded into our systems that counter the dominant narrative that has been embedded in our practices and our policies and procedures that have intentionally, sometimes intentionally originally, but in subsequent years, and maybe even in the current years, sometimes it's unintentional. We don't know what we're doing. We're continuing a system of oppression and marginalization that we don't want to do. So how can we start to recognize some of those things? And then we really build into this culmination of how do we create a plan of action? So what do we need to be doing, knowing everything that we know, what are the things that we need to do as organizations, as people within our community, to start moving forward in a positive direction? Who do we need to be listening to more? Who do we need to be partnering with? And so that's kind of our culmination, is that last week of really thinking about, let's make this tangible and have some ways in which we can move forward together. And as individuals, what do I need to be working on as a result of listening to and learning all of this and hearing different perspectives? What do I need to be paying more attention to as we move forward? And so that's it. That's what we have.
So maybe if I could jump in and just as a side note, let you know that I don't know if you all are familiar with Future Ready Oregon, and some funds were made available to provide workforce development training to vulnerable communities. And one of the projects that was funded through Future Ready Oregon funds was the Cultural Competency Certificate, which is we're able to offer to anyone who is interested. So we'll have separate cohorts. It's starting in winter. January 25th is going to be our first one. So anyone can participate. There is a small cost to the participant of $25. So they have a little bit of an investment in participating on the certificate. So I'll send you some more information, Gretchen, once we have our registration process open. But it's available to anyone, although we do have want to have a smaller class so people can participate. We have our program is very engaging. Based on adult learning theory, we just know that, we need to engage people, otherwise there is no learning. And that's why we will cap it to 25 participants. But it's going to be remote over Zoom in the evening. So I will send you the information, Gretchen, in case people who are interested.
We also have a number of different facilitators that are on deck to present, and not really, we'll have a certain amount of presentation in this where we actually give some content, but a lot of it we want to give just enough to have good conversation, because my goal at the end of this, and I know Vivi's goal, we want to have people grow in their curiosity and their desire to learn. So I would say by the end of this certificate, I would hope that people would say, I really want to learn more. Like, that was exciting and I'm interested and I want to know what else I can do, rather than, gosh, that was like I got hit with a fire hydrant. Like, that was a lot and it was good. It was all really relevant, but I don't even know what to do. Our goal is to get people in dialogue and conversation. We constantly have to pull back and realize there's so much we can share with you. But our goal is that we want to be able to, in each of our sessions, to in the next session have people feel like, I want to come back because I want to have another conversation, because that was good and that made me think. It made me feel uncomfortable in a way, but in a way that's kind of good, that I want to, like, yeah, let's follow up with this next conversation. So that's our goal. That's our hope.
And the way I see some connection between this certificate and the work that you already did was that we could potentially have the same program offered to businesses, incorporate some of the work that you all have done, which is incredible work. And I think it hits all of the major points, that any business would need to have some knowledge of, right, to be able to then receive a cultural competency kind of certificate of sorts from us. One of the things that I was talking to Gretchen about is, we were really thinking about this and how can we support this work, because we want to make sure that, this work doesn't just die, it goes somewhere. I think one of the things, and I would love to know kind of your perspective on it too, there is some discomfort from us to have someone go through a process, any process, right, that feels like a box checking, and then they're like, okay, we're a safe space, and then they have her, logo somewhere, and then it's like someone has a bad experience, right? And it's bound to happen. We can't control everything. And so that was kind of like some of our conversations was about, to call somewhere a safe space is very challenging. Because it might not be safe for many different reasons for people of different identities. So I just wanted to get kind of your perspective, maybe understand a little bit of like where you've been, where you are now, what you're hoping to accomplish too.
Thanks. Like that was amazing. The work that y'all are doing is incredible. I come from a higher education background, and all of my students who went to Chemeketa and transferred to whatever university I was working at were amazing. And they speak so highly of the education that they got at your college. So thank you for doing the work and then also just helping produce really amazing people. Okay, so kind of thinking about that, I think there was some discussion, and Kathy and Gretchen, correct me if I'm wrong, about how people would like file a kind of complaint about a safe zone. kind of what that would look like. Who would that go to? Who would do that kind of investigation? And how would we follow up with that? We really wanted to focus on that educational and that growth standpoint. So like what resources could we provide them to address what happened and to grow from that moment and to continue to do the work. But obviously that harm happened, and I totally get what you're saying, like putting your, like, we endorse this space as like a safe space, and then someone experiences harm. That's really tricky and feels kind of icky. So I totally get that. I don't know how to remedy that. So I would love like brainstorming or anything.
One thing that I have felt, so for brainstorming, the idea of safe spaces is I think in some ways problematic, and it can be, and Vivi and I have talked about this, but calling something safe can be an illusion in some ways. Like, we can't guarantee safety. We'd love to, like I want to, but I can't, because I can't control other people. I know I think Brene Brown calls them brave spaces, but like in other ways of communicating, like, yeah, this is what we want to be about. It's aspirational, but that also functionally we're all human and we're in process, and hurting people hurt people, right? So it's like we don't want to guarantee safety in a way that somebody would be like, why would you? So that was one of the things we thought. We don't want to put like, hey, this is Chemeketa like safe space. It's like, well, I can't guarantee that. Even if you went through all of this, you could say something really harmful. I could say something really harmful. Like, I don't want to, but it could happen. And so I don't want to guarantee safety when I don't know if that's.
And even going through the certificate, right? The reason why our goal is to inspire people to become more curious is because we know that this is a lifelong process, right? It's not something that you can just go through a training and suddenly you're culturally competent, right? So we also don't want to kind of feed this idea that you can just go through a training and then you're done, right? Or go through this checklist and then you're done. It's an ongoing process. So we felt like we need to have some back and forth, right? Kelsey, what you said around potentially having some kind of reporting process, I think that's important. It's part of that learning process, that educational process, right? If we didn't believe in education, we wouldn't be doing the work that we do, right? So I truly believe in that growth potential. And so we do need to have that opportunity for continuing engagement. So I think those are some of the things that we were thinking about, not necessarily concerned, but just like, really truly thinking about, and also kind of the motivation of businesses to get this credential or this, whatever is called, right? That maybe is it based on this need to put out there that they are a safe space, but in reality, not acknowledging all the work that it really requires, right? It's almost like a lack of real, true understanding of, the process that this truly is. So, and I think this is part of, what this process could be of like, educating about this, of like, this is just the first step. Right. So what could this first step look like, and also the continuing engagement look like? So it's not a one-off, right?
Love that. I wanted to offer a question. Kathy and Kelsey might be able to help with. I'm going back to the origins of the conversation and trying to remember your original goals and objectives. And I'm thinking about Mike speaking about how much visual cues and nonverbal cues can matter to a person's experience in a city. And I'm thinking about just that sincere intent to try to help people really interact in competent ways with each other. So it's both the accomplishment of the objectives in an ongoing way, recognizing it's not, you don't accomplish it and you're done. And then also just communicating, like there was that visual, like if I'm a particular identity and I see something in an environment that I relate to, I see myself that represents power of representation. It can communicate something to me as I'm moving around my city that makes me feel more welcome. So I think those were the two things, but I'm wondering, like when I go back to, so what is our objective? That's what, as to help us in this.
Kathy, do you have anything?
Well, I mean, it's, this project has been going on, I think, before either Kelsey or I were on this task force. And so it's hard, I think it's hard to go back to what the original plan was. But I think it's twofold. It's making members of the community know that there are places where they can go to feel safe. But it's also that education piece of how do we educate the businesses and the property owners and what have you about how to make their places more safe. And I think that's got to be somehow an ongoing process, because I can see people thinking that, of course, I'm providing a safe space, but not realizing, depending on what their background is, that they're really not, or maybe they're saying things that are harmful, or they have things up. And so there is that ongoing. It can't just be, yep, I checked the boxes, so therefore I'm a safe space, and that's the end of it. There's got to be that ongoing education. I don't know. I'm so glad you two came, and everything you said has just given me so much more to think about. I'm not sure where to go from here, though.
I wonder if we could call them welcoming spaces instead of safe spaces, because if you're going through this education, like you definitely are, and you've opted into it, then you definitely want to be a safe space. But I wonder if you could say this is a welcoming space. We can be welcoming and still mess up. Still say,
still make mistakes. Yeah.
Still make mistakes. I think safety is the one term that kind of just catches me a little bit. And I think, gosh, it's so hard to guarantee safety, but we can aspire to be welcoming.
And I think through the training, we would be able to provide more opportunities for people to think about what a safe space looks like physically, right? And how, it's more than just having this little emblem or something, right? Like it's the whole experience physically, and also the way that people interact. So I think there is potential, like John said, we have tools that we can, we're an educational institution, so we have tools to be able to provide something online that people would sign up for and go through a training online, and then at the end they could receive something like a welcome spaces certificate or something to that effect, right? We can kind of work on the details as we move along, if that's the way you would like to go. When I was talking to Gretchen, one of the concerns I have is around just capacity within our office to be able to do it. So it couldn't be something that is free. Unfortunately, would be probably something that would have some sort of cost associated with it because of the administrative time that it would take from us. But it is something that if you all decide that you would like to partner in some way, that we could potentially look from more of a professional development perspective, and rather than like a seal of, you are approved and you're good to go.
Right. It occurs to me, maybe in case this helps, to think about like that. Okay, where do we go from here? One thing that would be doable anytime is just to load resources on our webpage and then have them available as we do work with complaints. Most of we field complaints now related to concerns of inequity or discrimination, and that would be a helpful tool as we're talking with the places that manage these spaces where the complaints come from, to be able to say, and did you know Chemeketa has this, and here are some things on the city's webpage. You know, we could link to your program and we could say, here's some resources. I think that's easy. And I'm sure no cost for us to set up that linkage and be able to identify things. It sounds also, Vivi, John, correct me if I'm wrong, as if an individual today could sign up to be a part of your cohort, you know, up to 25 per cohort. And that's available today. Where I think we'd be scratching our heads is sort of that concept of sort of that seal of approval or kind of a thing, you know, for an organization. And we could develop maybe through conversation, and if we had resources, something that was tailored to an organization as opposed to an individual. Like you, and John, I have to say, I love the term welcoming. That immediately resonates with me. I find myself explaining it in that way to people. So it's, to me, it's a more authentic title. So I like that when you suggested that.
I'm
We
kind
definitely-
of, oh, sorry, go ahead,
Nope.
John.
No, go ahead.
I'll hear you.
We definitely could, like, I like, Gretchen, as you're talking about the, you either have individuals go through some of our certificate, or if there are businesses that like, no, we really want to know the next step. Like, we want to be this sort of place where people can really feel like this is a safe space, if that's the term they want to use. It's like, well, if you want to have, and I don't know what it would look like, the majority or at least the leadership of your business to go through this certificate. And we call this like, and they would earn a certificate, a state recognized, state of Oregon recognized certificate in cultural competency. We have no problem creating logos, something that they could even put in their business saying that, hey, I've been through this. And if we want to add something additional to say that we are a welcoming space, and wanted to have some sort of graphic or something that would draw people in and feel like, oh, that's cool. It draws them into the door. Like, we could do that. I just would want to make sure that it wasn't, we're not over promising something that we can't deliver, and that the leadership within the business would say, oh no, this is who we are. So that if there was something else that happened within that business, that they would say, that's not what we're about. If there was a complaint, it would be like, no, we recognize that, we've said this is what we're about, and we will resolve this. I think that's my key concern.
I think you just said it brilliantly. I really like everything that you just said. I think kind of working together to steer people to that program. Like, are you interested in supporting work in creating an equitable space, an equitable Salem, an inclusive Salem? Then you should look at this program. And then maybe part of our work is like, we can maintain some sort of list on our website. So like, congrats to these businesses that have completed the Chemeketa cultural competency thing. So then, like, when people go to our website, they can look at it. Or I know sometimes if you're visiting a place, you might Google like Black-owned restaurants. And so like, you might be like, oh, well, I want to frequent this place because they support diversity and equity work. I love the direction that this is going.
Well, good. I don't know, Kelsey, do you think we have any other objectives tonight? I know I was hoping that we could sort of understand each other better. You know, I wanted you all to meet Vivi, and I'm so glad we got to meet you, John. That might be good for today. I have one follow-up thought to ask of Vivi and John, which is, I wonder if there might be a piece to share with like businesses, like this is what's available today, but if you are looking for kind of a custom experience for your particular company, this would be who to talk to. But we wouldn't want to put words in your mouths about that. But it occurs to me that we could share that with companies. Like, here's this individual opportunity, but then here would be what a business thing could look like. And maybe integration with the Chemeketa Center for Business and Industry too. That same opportunity could be shared there.
Yeah. I think there's some information already on our website about our cultural competency certificate as a customized option.
Great.
And we have a web email address called diversity@chemeketa.edu. We also work with the Center for Business and Industry. And so they know of our certificate. They also talk about it. I think also having, the support of the city saying, hey, this is something that we think would benefit our businesses. I think that will be helpful too. So kind of we're all working toward the same thing. And if any of you are interested in going through the certificate and then providing us feedback, just let us know, and we can definitely get you a seat at this ongoing cohort that is coming up January 25th.
Also, I'm interested. I don't know if I'm available for the time commitment, but it's definitely something I was not familiar with it before tonight, and so I'm going to be looking further into it for sure.
Awesome. Okay, Gretchen, we'll send you some info, and then you can forward it to Kathy. That's awesome.
We also, if any of this is something that we're interested in pursuing, especially with like individual groups and businesses, I would love your feedback, because we're continuing to revise our external website. And so we want to make it accessible. Right now, we're going to add some more information that's not on there currently. But would love to get your feedback as you start to navigate it. And if you say I heard what you talked about, but I'm not seeing that reflected in what you wrote, please tell us, because we want to make sure that the heart of what we're trying to get at is communicated well in writing, and that people understand what we're doing.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Yeah.
That's awesome. So next steps, I like to leave a meeting with kind of a plan of action. So what do you all need from us, and vice versa?
I think maybe if you could just keep thinking about, is there something else besides the certificate that we feel like we need, right, in light of all the work that you put together? So if there is potential and interest in developing something completely new, or customize the certificate training for something that we would call like a welcome spaces train, something to that effect, just let us know. So maybe at some point in the future, just let us know that. We'll send you some information about the certificate coming up, the cohort coming up. John will be emailing Gretchen, so Gretchen, look for an email from John. And I think for us, that's what we have for now. Anything else, John? No? And then as you get into our website and everything, and then participate in the training, any feedback you have, we would greatly appreciate. Hi, Susan.
Welcome, Susan. That sounds awesome. Our next meeting is on the 25th. So the first day of your cohort. That's fun. So we can kind of talk about that, and then let you know kind of what we discussed if we think of anything. But I think that's very doable. Anything else?
I will say this is an ongoing process. And so, like we said, that our first day of our cohort is on January 25th, but this is one of many. And we already are doing individual consultations with small businesses that want to go through the certificate. This is more of a broad opening up for anyone in the community. So we're just getting started, honestly, with a lot of this. We've got some good momentum, and we have different groups that we've already been meeting with and have been tailoring it to them. So this is a growing, evolving, continuing thing. So I don't want you to think like you have to hit a certain target or date or we'll miss it. It's like, our hope is that as an institution, Chemeketa we could be a hub for how this could continue for years and years and years. So that's why we're doing this.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you already have some businesses and organizations that are kind of like interested in that. So that's kind of a good jumping off point to maybe creating that certificate for those organizations. So yay.
Yay.
Okay. Well, if we don't have anything else, we can let y'all go.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity and
Thank
getting to
you.
meet you. I've heard so much about you, so it's great to meet you all.
Thanks,
Bye.
Nice to
y'all.
have
Really
you here
appreciate your
tonight.
work.
Thank
Thanks for having
you.
us. Bye.
We'll be in touch. Awesome. Hi, Susan. Welcome.
Sorry, one place it said 7 and one place it said 6 and yeah, my apologies.
It's okay.
We're finishing up one and we'll be starting another one at 7. But it's good to see you,
There we
Susan.
go.
Okay. So next we'll go into Transgender Day of Remembrance debrief. I know I heard from a couple of folks, but as you all know, I was not there. I was in the tropical land of Hawaii. So would love to hear kind of what y'all thought and like how we can improve for next year.
I think it went really well. I was surprised at how many people came. I really didn't expect that to be that many people, and they kept coming in. So that was really good. I think there were some logistical things that we might do differently, like with having the Mayor Hoy and Angelo sitting on stage the whole time, and they really didn't have anything to like do or look at when the names were being read. And so I think that was a little, something to change. And then having something, if people are sitting on the stage, having some sort of a screen or something so that they can be seeing what everyone else in the room is seeing would be good. But I think I didn't hear any feedback after it was over with. We kind of sat in our seats for a bit longer, and so I didn't hear anything people had to say on their way out the door. Gretchen, I don't know if you did.
I did. I stood more near the door. And Kelsey, I really appreciate the work you did on the visuals, because overwhelmingly there were 2 pieces of feedback. And one was, wow, for people who'd come before, wow, the visuals added such a huge element. Please never stop doing that. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And then the second element was just, we're so grateful that this event is happening. This is an important event and we're really glad. So those were the 2 categories I think I received. So yeah, I agree. I was also just tickled at the participation, and would say that maybe the one piece I would add for next year is I'm not confident that I will always have staff resources. And so what I want to do is see if during the course of this year, if I could identify 2 or so people who could be trained in the role of executing the audio, like the visual. It's apparently not too hard, but I would just love to have, I didn't think I could do it and do the role I was doing of kind of watching over the front. And so I'd love to train a couple of volunteers to do that piece, but I think we have lots of lead time, so we should be able to do that.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. And next year I will make sure that I don't go on vacation that often, so I will make sure that I will be there. And I know folks appreciated / like it was kind of heavy because that was the same day, the day after the Club Q shooting.
Yeah.
So I know people kind of did appreciate that space. So thank you all for helping provide that.
That's something else that I thought it wasn't really mentioned, and I don't know. Mayor Hoy and Angelo were the 2 that were really saying, aside from you, and your remarks were pre-recorded. But I felt like maybe after the fact, it would have been nice if somebody had mentioned that at the time. But that, it is what it is. And the other thing, I don't remember who suggested it. It was one of the other commissioners who was there. Maybe having like an open mic if people wanted to say something, if they had something they wanted to share, because it ended and we just kind of all sat there not sure what to do. And if maybe some people wanted to share whatever they were thinking or feeling at that time, would have been a thought too.
I love that idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
one caution I'd give you about open mics in public meetings is just the potential risk as well.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
be and probably would be positive and complimentary and amazing. It could be something different. And then we have to have a game plan
Yeah.
if it's something different. And so that's
Yeah.
just the one caution I'd give us is we need to really do some thinking about how to execute that well so that we don't have remarks that kind of diminish people's experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah. There has to be somebody kind of facilitating that process and have to plan ahead for what if.
You just never know.
what it goes there, yeah. And then one other thing that I thought out when I was standing at the front, and I don't know if it was even an issue, but we had two fully uniformed police officers standing in the lobby. They were off to the sides, not like they were being imposing, and I understood why they were there. But I just wonder if that maybe made some people uncomfortable when they came in the door. Because I know people aren't always comfortable being around the police and SPD particularly, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anybody mentioned it, but it kind of made me a little bit uncomfortable with them standing there. At the same time, I was glad that they were there to ensure that things were safe for everybody who did attend. So
Yeah,
go ahead, Kelsey.
No, go ahead.
I had some feedback prior to the event about people expressing concern for safety.
Yeah.
And so wondering if it helped communicate an intention of having safety given the proximity to the shooting. But you're right, it can be experienced in lots of different ways.
Yeah, no, I fully understood. And it personally, I mean, but I'm coming from a totally different perspective. I mean, I was kind of glad that at least one of them was there, but I just wasn't sure how that would be taken to some members of our community who have had bad experiences with the police.
Yeah, it's hard to find that balance between like, we need like that safety because of violence against trans people.
Yeah.
But also some of that violence is from police and law enforcement.
And the one I think was supposed to, or his intention was to be in the parking lot, I think in his vehicle, but he came in to use the restroom or something and ended up staying inside. So, I mean, it wasn't like they were told to go stand there in front of the door or anything.
Be intimidating.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if, and I don't know law enforcement rules or anything, but like plain clothes police officers, so they're there, but it's not that visual.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Certainly a choice. I think it comes down to the objective. Like, were we wanting to communicate the visual so people know, oh, there's police here, that makes me feel safer? Or do we not want to communicate that visual is if in plain clothes, and then people might not, they might feel better. So it's a good question. I know they have outfits with more or less uniform, like there's simple polo shirts that just have a logo, or completely plain clothes or the full uniform. Lieutenant Aguilar can speak to that better than I can, but it's 6:57. I'm noticing the time.
Are we on the same link for the next
We're not actually, so I need to
okay.
Yeah. But thank you, Kelsey. I don't mean to.
No, you're good. I'm glad that our meeting went so long.
Yeah, it was really good conversation. Well, let's see. I'll let you wrap this up, and then I want to make sure I connect with Susan about how to get to the next meeting.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You're good. Okay, well, we will have some things for either email or next meeting. But thanks everyone for being here, and stay safe, stay warm, and have a great, if you celebrate Christmas, have a great holiday weekend. If you celebrate Hanukkah, have a continued great Hanukkah and Kwanzaa. If you don't celebrate anything, have a great time.